jump back and talk about players who maybe we need to think about maybe making a swap for.
Reevaluate.
Yeah.
Sure.
Um, I've got three of them, but we've already talked about one of them. So I spoke a little bit about the Joe Scally, right? Um, kind of tired that we're hearing these things, right? There's always going to be these games that end up with USMNT Twitter screaming about, how we're never going to beat Brazil with a performance like that, right? Um, Joe Scally seems to be one of those people who kind of got thrown into the sacrificial lamb thing. But to me, this isn't you know, who's going to play instead of Joe Scally because Serginho Dest exists, right? But it's quite clear that when Joe Scally gets called upon, he hasn't quite done it. So then who's the next guy up? And I look at a guy like Brooks Lennon. Brooks Lennon is sitting at home right now, getting 950 assists a minute with Atlanta United, while Joe Scally is probably, like we said, doing all right for a mid-table Bundesliga team. When he doesn't get the job done, who's next, right? We've got Yedlin, who we kind of have hopefully phased out at this point. I think he's a little bit past his time. Moore and Brooks Lennon, like who is right back too? And again, this is one of those things where and we're going to talk about it with another player here, that the conversation between the starter is a non-starter, right? Serginho Dest is your starting right. But when Dest does something stupid and gets a red card, when Dest gets tired and needs to be rested or rotated, right? Who's the next guy up? I don't think Joe Scally has done enough to earn that, and just existing in Europe hasn't given him that next level ability. Now, I'll also preface that saying he's hella young, right? So much time to grow. But do we want to use that time to grow in the national team where he might be making mistakes that cost us trophies? Do we want to try it out with somebody maybe who's not proven? I don't know the answer to that, but I do think it's worth a conversation.
Yeah. I feel like every time I think of Joe Scally USMNT performances, I think underwhelming. And maybe that's just like a product of people hyping him up so much online because he plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach and people just absolutely lose their minds over that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think maybe some time away from the team would be good for him. I mean, maybe you give him the Mark McKenzie, like a couple of bad performances, take some time away from the team, and then come back at a later point. Like he's so young, like you said, he can come back in a few years and still be considered young and still have plenty of time to work his way into this team. I'm not saying you got to rule this guy out for World Cup 2026. Like I'm just saying maybe like a couple of windows away might help him. He could just focus on club, not have to, keep jumping back and forth, and maybe
Well,
that'll help him. He gets a bit more experience and then he comes in more prepared.
that's exactly what I was suggesting. I feel like I didn't actually mention it, but I'm not saying kick him to the curb. I'm saying drop him to the B squad. Let him play in Gold Cup. Let him play in um,
How old is he? He should have
22,
been with like he's what?
22, I think.
Is he eligible for the Olympics? He should have sent him to the
Yeah,
Olympics.
U23. But again, it's who do you want to take and put in? And again, player personnel is difficult. I'm not trying to uh, dump on anybody for their choice in selections here. Yeah, he's 21, right? So he's got tons of room to grow. I think it might be better to put him in a Gold Cup team or a level of a Gold Cup team where he absolutely dominates it and has a bit of confidence going into the next level than maybe in the men's national team. So or like in the first team with all these players, right?
It's not a bad idea. I mean, I think the right back spot, to your point, it's not our most secure position at the moment behind Dest. I think it was Reggie Cannon's spot for a long time, and I don't necessarily think he's completely out of the mix.
What
He's,
happened to him?
he's with QPR now.
Goodness me.
I definitely think his stock has been hurt. I don't think he's the number two guy anymore. I think maybe he can get back to that point again, but a name that I'm going to throw out there is Brian Reynolds, who has been playing consistently for a Westerlo side in
Westerlo
Belgium.
in Belgium, yeah.
Yeah. He's getting consistent game time. It was a team that finished seventh in the Belgian league last year, which for the level, like for the quality of team, I think they probably did pretty well for themselves. I don't particularly think of that side as one of the top Belgian sides. So I imagine he's probably playing pretty well. And he's a starter again this year. So I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him kind of in the mix again. I'm not a huge fan of Shaq Moore or DeAndre Yedlin here. I don't think Yedlin's the and I mean I don't love the Yedlin picks when he's in here, but I also would prefer him over like Shaq Moore. I think he's got
Sure.
good experience and I think his performances have been solid enough that if we really needed to call on him, like I wouldn't feel concerned. Whereas sometimes when Shaq Moore has been in, I've been pretty concerned. But yeah, it's a bit of a dodgy spot right now behind Dest. So we need Dest to stop getting these stupid red cards.
Yeah, for real. And again, right, that's the idea is how do you want to build that spot up? Are we going to rely on the club team to get them to a spot where they can just step in and do the job, right? I don't know. The I have another person here, and his name is Tim Weah. So there is a lot of discourse on the Twitters about whether Tim Weah is an absolute baller or the worst player to ever put on a U.S. men's national team kit. And it is USMNT fan 23852 versus USMNT stan 94279. And they're just going at each other about whether one is really good or one is really bad. And like I said, my popcorn emptying very quickly watching this discourse. Um, so one and it really stems from statistics versus the eye test, right? Somebody's saying like his stats are so bad they don't deserve to be anywhere near a national team pool, and he needs to be replaced ASAP, right? And the other is if you watch what he does on the ball when he's given the correct opportunity, right? When the system works to create the space that he needs to go forward, then he's very, very good. Just because he's not getting goals and assists doesn't mean he's not creating chances, right? The one thing that I really like that comes out this is like somebody's like, he needs to be replaced now. Get him out. I don't want to ever see him again. And then nobody ever says like, hey, we should replace him with, right? Like nobody ever gives that
Doesn't
answer.
matter. You could go in there. Just get him
Listen,
out.
listen. All I'm saying is, if you really need a replacement, my buddy Alex Mawila is sitting right in the corner, and he's ready to go. Like you just say the word. Yeah,
He could go anywhere. He can be
you're damn
Cam.
right. I
He
got
can
an
be right
Alex.
wing, left wing.
You're
Put him in
damn right.
goal.
You're damn right. I got an Alex Mawila reference in a USMNT episode. Yeah, yeah, I did. Um, but listen, I've watched Way of play. I didn't watch him last night, but again, I don't think that would have shown us the best of what he could do, right? Because of the low block and things like that. But his explosiveness and chance creation is the best that we have in this pool, like bar none. Did he have a tough game? I mean, everybody had a tough game, right? But seeing him underperform in one game and then having a tough club um, situation, which we'll talk about here in a second, two different things, right? Um, but like I said, seeing him underperform in a game and just saying he has to go without actually giving a replacement is like massive Twitter energy, right? Like I'm angry. I need to express my feelings and I have no idea how to fix it, but I'm mad and I want people to know about it. Like that doesn't fix anything. And also you need to go a little bit deeper, I think, right? I think it was over the course of the last 1,000 minutes he's played with the U.S. men's national team, he's got 9 goal contributions. And then when you look at his club form, he plays as a right back, a wing back, and plays 900 minutes for Juve in a season, and he's got one assist in 900 minutes or something like that. So how does that translate into what he can do as a winger? Should he be getting chances at maybe right back over Scally? If we just talked about maybe needing a backup right back, should other wingers maybe be given a chance? Right, Brendan Aronson, Julian Gressel is a name that comes to mind because I just watched him play today. I don't know these answers, but I think again it's an interesting conversation to have because at the end of the day, you need to bring to the World Cup, to the Copa America, wherever it is, you need to bring the best of the best 23, 26, however many you're going to bring, you need to bring the best of the best. So you need to figure out who they are, and these chances are slim. So I'm not saying that, Gressel's the answer, but it's worth a shot, right? I'm trying to think. There are other players. What's the guy he's playing in? I think he's playing
Where?
in Belgium too.
A winger?
Yeah. Oh, Taylor Booth. He's playing in
Oh, he's in
in
Netherlands.
Netherlands. Yeah. Maybe he gets a shot, right? And again, I don't know at what level of this national team, but at some point we need to find the depth because as it was very clear, when one person doesn't have it, and you need to find whoever the next person is. And again, when we talk about roles and responsibilities, right? Weah, 1v1, great technical ability, very good at creating chances in open play. Brendan Aronson, his usual replacement, phenomenal pressing ability, great engine, doesn't stop running for the life of him, and wins the ball in high areas. But you get him into a one-on-one, and that's not his strength. So again, it's who are we going up against? What is the game plan, and how do we want to go about this? So, interesting conversations between club form to national team form, and then the overlying answer is who's next, and is it even worth it to have that person come up, right?
I personally love Way in the national team. I think he's one of the few guys where when we're having poor games, he just pulls something out of nothing because he is that explosive player like you talked about. He might be just kind of you might forget he's on the field for like 30 minutes, but all it takes is like 5 minutes for him and he just whips in like the most he beats his defender with some ridiculous pace, whips in a ridiculous ball, and all of a sudden we have a goal. It's like he's so good at just turning around stuff when things look really poor. And I personally would like to continue seeing him in the game. I mean, he should have had an assist. He had a really good ball into the box that Tillman kind of like scuffed a little bit. I think it was just like a weird bounce, but he could have easily gotten an assist on that. Yeah, I just think he continuously produces when he's in there. I don't really get the point of kind of calling for his head just because he didn't get a goal contribution in that last game against Jamaica. I personally would like to see him continue to play because I like Pooley on the left side better anyway. So I'd prefer to see Pooley out there and Way on the right. I'm not a huge fan of Way going into the right back spot. In a five in the back, if he's a wing back, I'd be game for it. But in a four in the back, I don't know if I trust him enough defensively to get the job
Fair,
done there. Unless we're playing like a much weaker team, in which case
sure.
I'm all for it then.
Yeah,
But
but it was clear that he's not in those plans. I think Weston McKinney went out at right back in that game. So, um, and Weah was still on the field. So, uh, don't think that'll ever be the plan. But that also makes sense, right? He's an attacker. He can defend, but he's an attacker.
yeah. I'll give my I think you have one more player you said that
Yep.
I'm gonna jump in here and give you mine. I think Malik Tillman's been a bit disappointing. What?
There is a dancing group of people on the field now at halftime. So
On
this
the
group
field.
this
They
group
were
was
practicing.
practicing in the corner for their
The
for their
halftime show.
halftime performance. I have found the answer. Let's go.
All right. I'm gonna jump in here with my player, and then we'll go to your last one. And maybe we have the same player. I'm not too sure, but um, Malik Tillman for me. I know he got the start in the game against Jamaica. I don't think he was anything special in that game. I think he's had a really, really good season with PSV. That America trio over there in PSV has been awesome to follow this whole season. And I think it was worth giving him the start, but he's another guy that I just feel like hasn't produced on the international stage for us. Like a Joe Scally type of thing. Like, okay, he might be like at a big club, like doing pretty well at the big club, but once he gets to the USMNT, it's just like not clicking. And transfer market, I don't know how many games they have listed on here. So bear with me. I'm just going off of what I'm seeing in front of me. He's had 8 appearances, I believe, for the USMNT so far, and no goals and assists. So I think he should still be in and around the team. I just don't think he's a guy that we put out as a starter. I think he's a good guy to have on the bench and bring in into certain situations, but I think when healthy, I like Adams, McKennie, Musa, and maybe even Johnny ahead of him in the midfield. So that's my player that I'm going to throw out there from the Jamaica game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very clear that unless you are so maybe not clear, clear is not the right word, but the the non-top five league players, if they are not the single best player in that league, they tend to have difficulty getting up to the pace. I think if that makes sense, right? Um, you saw it with Tillman. You saw it with there's one
Mark
other guy,
McKenzie.
Mark McKenzie. Yeah, thank you. Um, And that's not an overarching thing, right? Des plays at Ajax, and he's not the best player in the Eredivisie, but he's good. Pepe playing at PSV, and he has his moments, right? Um, the the Tillman shout, I think he was always brought in to be a number two, number three guy, right? But because Reyna hasn't played a ton, Adams is still on minutes restrictions, that they were kind of forced to shoehorn him in there. Now, again, I think they were looking for more of an attacking presence, right? We talk about roles and responsibilities. So you could have started Johnny, who I think is a better fit in the midfield than um, Tillman. But then you're relying on a Musa, McKinney, Johnny. Now, who's going to go forward? Who's going to stay back? Who's going to balance that triangle? We don't know. And I don't know if it's a personnel thing and how they wanted to play. That'd be my guess because Tillman does have a little bit more going forward. He does like to go forward a little bit better. That's kind of the way I see that. So agree with you there. My final one, it's going to lead into our last conversation here. Florian Balogun once again has failed to create much of anything going forward. And again, how much of that has to do with the chance creators behind him and next to him and the low block? Probably a ton of it, right? But for all the shtick that Jesus Ferreira gets for only scoring against island teams, he played a full group against TNT, both legs, didn't score. Now goes against Jamaica, didn't score. He's got 3 goals in 8 appearances for the men's national team against Canada, Ghana, and Oman. The Ghana game, I think, is impressive. I think it might have been a pen. I might be wrong there. Canada was kind of his first game in and was a big Nations League thing. And then Oman, right? I'm not saying he's cooked and get rid of him and we're done. But as we head into these tournaments that are relatively important, right? The Copa America, the World Cup, these things that matter, we need to find the person who's going to convert these chances. Like I mentioned, when you go to these, you're going to be looking for the person who is going to score the goals in a six. You got 6 games to score. Who's going to be the person to score 3 goals in those 6 games, right? That's the person we need to find. Now, again, I'm not saying Balogun's out, but we've got other options, right? There are people who aren't in the team. There are people who are in the team on the bench. There are people who are heating up and might be really hot by the time we get to a Copa America or a World Cup, and we need to take those into consideration as well. But the point is, like, even Florian Balogun in, I believe, is at Monaco now.
Yeah.
Florian Balogun at Monaco, and as I mentioned, 22 years old. He's got a 30 million price tag. All great. 5 goals, 4 assists in Monaco in 21 appearances, but he's got where's Monaco right now in League One?
They're third.
Third. So he's got 5 goals in a really they're second in a 19 or a 17 team league, right? Nobody's catching PSG because of course they're not. There are other options that if he is not performing, whether and I'm not saying kick again, I'm not saying kick him out, but if we're looking at somebody who's going to start and make these impacts, if he's not scoring, we can't go 60, 70 minutes without him getting chances or scoring goals. We need somebody who's going to do that. So if that means that somebody's going to sit in a low block and we need to start serving balls into the box, we need somebody who's going to go up and win the ball. Haji Wright, Brandon Vasquez, players of that nature, right? People are going to go up and win the ball with their head, which maybe, and I haven't watched enough of Balogun to know if that's his style or not, but quite clearly it didn't work last time or the time before that, right? So again, I'm just putting out in conversation that it's worth having the thought of somebody else just to see what might happen.
Yeah, I'm gonna err on the side of kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt because I feel like it's been so many years since we've seen a striker in the USMNT consistently be a good goal scorer for us.
Yep.
There's guys that pop up and get hot at certain times, like Haji scoring the brace last game, and Pepe's had his moments where he gets hot. Sargent has his moments as well, but nobody's just been able to be consistent about it and like completely lock down that striker spot. So I'm just gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and just chalk it up to the fact that it's just a system that really hasn't benefited strikers. Because I do think the quality is 100% there. I think he's a really good striker, and just needs to be in the right situation. And I know we have the players on this team to put him in the right situations. I just don't think the tactic has been good for his game so far, I guess is the way I'll phrase that.
Yeah, that's probably fair too. But again, if that is the tactic we are going to stick with, whether it right, wrong, or indifferent, we need to find the player that fits the tactic. Then, right? If it's
Yeah,
clear that
yeah.
he's not that player, then first of all, probably bad on Greg, right, for not being able to again coach in the moment and recognize what fits his system and who fits that system, or change his system to fit the players that he has. But if that is going to be the way it goes, we need to find the players that fit the system.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
would agree. I think to your exact point, I think I agree as well. If he's going 45, 50, 60 at most minutes and not really getting involved in the game at all, then I think it's worth making the change. I don't think he should just have the full 90-minute leash just because he's playing for Monaco.
sure. So that whole conversation then leads into one of my bigger questions, and that's as we get into the final here, which is going to be played tomorrow on the date of recording, yesterday on the date of release of the episode.